3-0. The Seattle Seahawks of 3-0. Griff and I are going to talk all about it after Seattle very easily beat the Miami Dolphins 24-3. At least if you read the final scoreline, that's what it suggests. But there's obviously way more topics than that to come out of this. There's also the state of the whole team that I think we're going to lead off with, and your listener questions. Please do keep having them in here. We can answer one already, Griff, which is the snail. When do we start? Well, the snail, perhaps given your picture, you could tell us when does Abraham Lucas return to the offensive line. But yeah, we're started now, so there you go. But yes, I've made a note of all the other questions, so thanks for that. Griff, do you have a preamble, or do you just want to get into it?
Let's just hop right in this week.
Look at before that. Look at my magnificent combination. In this glass,
Mm-hmm.
and then in this cup.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, if I try and show the contents, is it
That's a cool mug. I like that mug. I see.
You do? Yep. Thanks. Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You prefer it to the SeahawksOnTape.com mug?
Yep.
Oh, and chat, what do you think of the rebrand? It's a bit more equal.
I'm having chair problems, Matty. Hold on.
Oh.
You can proceed.
You sure? Because I feel an intro without you would, I don't know what will happen. And you haven't told me to do the thing. What a catastrophe. Anyway, I hope we're all doing. Justin, coffee and wine is...
There we go.
Okay. Okay, Justin.
I'm liberated now.
Sorry, but Justin, given your surname here, I would think you'd be someone of culture, but apparently not. And Justin, for that, just a little 5 minutes to think about what you just did there. Okay, now chat.
Oh, Matty.
Just let that be
justice for Justin.
Yeah.
This is an abuse of power now. Come on. You are Matty. You are Napoleon in phase 2 of his God
thing. Okay. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where your Seattle Seahawks are 3-0. They're first place in the NFC West. They're joint first place in the NFC after winning 24-3 over the Miami Dolphins at home. Griff, there's so much to talk about with this game, but let's start before we do like our overall summary with how good is this team? Because everyone else in the NFC West, after a hilarious, even by Kyle Shanahan standards, collapse from the 49ers, everyone else in the division is 1-2.
Yeah.
So let's do some quick mental mathematics here. That would give Seattle a
3-1, carry the 0.
Yep. And then under the thing.
Right. 2-game
lead. 2 games.
2-game lead.
Wow. In the division. And they're also joint first place, as I said, in the NFC with the Minnesota Vikings, which is a very surprising one, given Sam Darnold's under center. And I just did not rate them, didn't think Ryan Flores would be able to repeat the magic, and yet he's doing even more so and making CJ Stroud look ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, how good are the Seahawks, and did your opinions of the Seahawks change? Third time lucky now. Has anything been shown in this past game that has shifted your opinion?
Good is always a relative term, right?
Of course.
Compared to this season, it seems like there is so much variance across the league. They are definitely far and away a good team this year. And it's really important during a high variance period, which the Seahawks are both on the good and negative side. Because if we look at their games, there's been some wildly negative things that have happened that they've survived. It's good to just keep stacking wins during a period as you're figuring yourself out. You know, if they were 1-2 or 2-1, but like say the process was the same, we'd feel the same way about the team projecting it forward. So during this period of like what's going on, it's good to stack wins. So I don't really know how to answer that question for this year yet. If we were to take this team compared to, say, the context of last season, I don't mean last season Seahawks, I mean the league last year. How would this team, if you airdropped it into 2023, fare? I feel like they would be firmly among the teams that are below the elite teams and right in there with like the really solid teams, the good teams. They would feel like a 10-7, 11-16, which is kind of our prediction, more or less. It was another game of like, what do we know about this team? On defense, they have an absolutely ferocious pass rush, solid safeties. The back seven can come downhill. The corners can cover. If you're going to nitpick, there are some nitpicks, again, with like they're a little sensitive in run defense against certain things out of certain looks. And their second level doesn't have the best zone integrity, but it's also hard to really gauge that for real because we haven't really seen them against a real offense yet. But again, all things considered, it looks really good for the defense. Offensively, a very potent offense that can move the ball, that has some absolutely devastating fatal flaws, that is completely hamstringing its ceiling. Something the play callers are in some ways enabling and in some ways are trying to figure out how to mitigate those effects. They haven't found their their positive feedback loop yet, but I think they'll get there. All in all, things project well, but I really want to see them run into a really well-rounded team so that we can really get a true gauge of who they are.
Well, and their opportunity should finally come next Monday, where we get to see them in their fourth game of the year face a real quarterback. I think Jared Goff confirmed real-ish, but also a real team in the Detroit Lions and the style that they play with. And we'll have time to preview this later in the week, probably on a Thursday show, but the style they play with and how they are tough, physical, run the football, and then on defense, they have some things which will cause Seattle issues, even though I don't know how good they are necessarily. That's a real matchup because this past game again, I'm left thinking, as you just have kind of laid out, there's still the same problems on the team. There's also the same strengths. I don't know how much has been proven or I don't know how much has been disproven. I actually think we're some way to it being proved that our takes were correct. No, that what they are on paper is what they are as in actuality. Possibly, yeah. And we just need to see them come up against the real opponent to see if there are things that they're better at than we didn't expect, and things maybe that they're worse at. I think the problem, the genuine issue, if you like, is going to be the things that they're bad at, like, for instance, the interior of the offensive line pass protection.
Mm-hmm.
They look bottom percentile bad because every team has a weakness. Every team has flaws. But
Right.
the weaknesses of this team look appallingly bad. Now this is a bit silly for us to be saying all this because yes, they are 3-0. It's really exciting. Mike McDonald's the first head coach in Seahawks history to start 3-0. He's also continued Pete Carroll's record of wearing a cap and winning. So because McDonald, of course, won his first 3 games.
Something in the water, man.
Oh yeah. But yeah, the team has a slightly odd feel, and it's a completely unique start in just the sense that, I mean, Miami were so bad, and once again I was left wondering why they didn't run the football more, just like they did with Denver, and why didn't they call more of their good runs, and why were they so split between gun and under center and pistol, and not the sequencing felt off. And I think a lot of that's early in the season stuff. I think a lot of that is they don't, it's a road game. They don't really need to win at this point in the season, and they've got crap. Why call your best plays when you're down to your third string quarterback? But it just felt, and maybe Mike McDonald also has a secret sauce to all of this, and he's figured out the way to to stop the run when it matters most, because Seattle managed to do that again in this game. At the same time, I still haven't seen anything which disproves that, run defense is going to be a problem against the better teams, and that man coverage is going to be a problem against the better teams, and that, the offensive line is going to be a problem against the better teams. And that when they face a quarterback who is in, say, the top 10 or the top 5, or even just an NFL starter, like confirmed NFL good starter,
right,
they're going to have some difficulties, just like when they face a team who can play action or just a championship level team, which of course they have on their schedule. So we're going to find out. I haven't seen anything to disprove that. And I think on the flip side, you could also say Seattle's lows in games, well, maybe they were playing down to the opponent, because it was very easy at times. Every single game they played this year, even though it's become sort of close, and this is their highest winning margin, even though it felt in many ways the most messy game of them all, which speaks to how poor Miami was as well. But every single game, I haven't really felt Seattle was in any danger at all of losing the game. That speaks to their ability, but I also think maybe there's an element of them playing down to the opponent rather than, them being bad per se or being exposed. So that's a lot of waffle, but it's a weird vibe to the team, right, Griff?
Right, I agree 100%. And on that note, it's interesting because there's the idea of, like, imagine if the Seahawks were this sloppy last year, would they have been able to survive that and win? So that's the glass half full, right? And I get that line of thinking, but at the same time, why are they so sloppy? Is the glass half empty part of it, right? Now, are these just small sample size, high variance things? Like, what are the chances any team, no matter how sloppy they are, has 2 safeties in a game, almost has a third? You know what I mean? Like, their interceptions were really dinky, kind of like BS interceptions. The penalties are a problem for sure. And they had a penalty problem last year as well that has kept up this year. Is that because of a new staff? So as far as like, are they playing down, or are they able to play through severe, self-inflicted wounds? Like, how do you want to view that? Really, the way that all that comes together is in terms of like nebulous vibe or nebulous like characteristics that we kind of infer or maybe even project on a team. And I suspect it's more the latter than the former. Mm-hmm. They feel a lot like last year's Seahawks in terms of that. Now, I think there's very little. Last year's team culturally, good and bad, has very little to do with this team's culture, good and bad. I think it's just pure incidental coincidence that there are similarities there. But I don't really see a lot of value in trying to compare and contrast, because I see too much of similar stuff. And then I think the other commentary there is that if we watched other teams every single week, we would start to see more similarities than we think. As fans, we perceive our own team differently than we perceive other teams. That's why I, like, as a joke, I retweet everyone's tweets about their own teams, because I'm like, that sounds a lot like our fan base, sounds a lot like me half the time. Is there anything to be gained from that? Like, some perspective, perhaps. Also, it's funny. That's why I retweet it. I think it's funny when people are wanting Kyle Shanahan fired. That's hilarious.
Well, he's got to go.
Kyle Shanahan's get Kyle out of there. So yeah, you said something earlier that was an amazing point, and then I forgot. And my follow up was going to be more.
Well, I don't think I did.
It was something about something for sure, though. Anyway, Grubb is still. Oh yeah. It was about McDaniel. I could not intuit the logic behind like McDaniel's like macro structure this game. I thought he was going to live in more 2-gap stuff, more even like fake 21 stuff, fake 12 stuff, even at 11 personnel, and just work that all game long. I really don't feel like, well, it's only been 3 games, with the exception of the Patriots games. I really don't feel like the Seahawks have gotten like the opposing coaching staff's best shot yet. I really, even if regardless of how talented they are, like, I want to see.
You maybe wouldn't expect that in the first 3 games of the season. It's just, I think why that's, and that ordinarily wouldn't be a problem. I think why that's so challenging is, like specifically, you're talking about him getting into fake 11 personnel, fake two back looks out of 3 wide receiver stuff. Because Griff, the idea being you'd force a nickel front, you'd then be able to run on the nickel type front weaknesses, and he did do it like once or twice, and it hit big up the B gap bubble. But it's like, well, if it was a playoff game where they absolutely had to win, or they actually wanted to win, or wanted to win's too blasé. But it's the San Francisco 49ers per chance. They would call better stuff and they'd do it more often. And it's kind of crazy to me that he had some runs which were popping, and Seattle didn't stop them, other than like in the third and short, right on the goal line stuff, where to their credit they did, and that's a really encouraging sign. Like when McDonald needs to dial it up a bit, he can do it. But the those types of runs and then the layers off that, it was so short, like almost bizarrely so. But then maybe it's just inexperienced or lesser experienced quarterback for McDaniel, and then him getting hurt, and then the crowd noise, which anyway, we're touching on too many topics here, but I thought that was a good place to start us off, because you said it before we came off air, but before we came on air, but it is a somewhat odd vibe, and I completely agree with what you're saying, where it does a lot of it resembles the team of last year, and that makes sense because there's been total regime change, but a lot of the players are still the same.
Right.
Like how many draft picks are playing?
Look, Matty, you can take the players away from Pete Carroll, but you can't take the Pete Carroll out of the players, man. He has infected them on a molecular level. It's going to take some time for Dr. McDonald to completely exorcise all those demons before we are, as a fan base, finally free from the shackles of Pete Carroll football, which has accursed us with winning season after winning season. Anyway, so we're here now. Maddie, move on, Maddie.
Okay, well, let's do a positive.
The past is the past, but
that was quite a dry opening. So let's do a real positive, which is the defensive front, Griff.
The straight up, they lost Leo and Murphy, and they were still nuking Miami. Derek Hall is very good at football, and I'm finally willing to say it. He reminds me of Nick Bosa in terms of traits-wise, how he can be so low to the ground and still churn his legs. So like just like the ability to reshape his body, bend, flex. Mafe is like one of the 10 best edges of the league this year, but like the movement traits between Hall and Mafe are like even different, because like Hall can move his body on a continuum. There's like gradual incrementalism and how he reshapes and expands and shrinks, whereas Mafe is like he has like quantized movement almost, where he goes from small to big to small, like and like every move is like really jagged and quick and like lightning quick, but it's like all like angles, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Hall is just like smooth like butter, and he's smooth like butter with incredible like strength and power and fast twitch as he moves.
Yep.
And that affords him so much margin for error. That's something that like really only guys like Nick Bosa and like Von Miller have. I mean, Von Miller has a springiness that none of them have, right? But like he just keeps churning, and it's just incredible. And as he develops his knockdown moves, I mean, game over, man. He's going to be better than Mafe. He's already kind of close, but like Mafe is incredible this year. So Derek Hall is one of my biggest draft misses. I said it pre-draft. I was like, he's a third rounder. I went back and watched every single one of his games after they drafted him. I missed it. I'm like, this guy's a fringe first rounder. I didn't see it. And then I'm like, he's going to break out. And here he is. But I'm still counting that as a miss for me. Mafe, too, I was kind of cynical about. But
yeah, Mafe stylistically at the time in particular, he wasn't, and he still isn't, but he wasn't the super bendy edge type that you had a preference for, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just cool seeing his game hit, right? Like he was never raw at the top of his rush. He knows how to engage tackles. It was what he was doing right at the line of scrimmage with that false step and knowing what rush path to take, what angle to take. but
They
he's
bet
figured it
on
out now.
they bet on trades, their coaching, and then I imagine his character being someone who they realized he'd be able to put it
Yeah.
together, you know, and
And
learn.
a funny tidbit there, we could probably say it now because it was technically off the record. It was leaked to us and probably many people that during the draft process, I don't remember who they preferred. I think Carroll and the scouts preferred another edge there, and Clint Hurt was clamoring
Well,
for Mafe. I just find
the
that it's
other
just an
edge
anecdote.
is
It's just an
Arnold
anecdote.
Ebiketie, right?
Yes, Ebiketie. I think, yeah. So I think, and Ebiketie went before them, but in the
Yeah.
pre-draft process, Carroll preferred Ebiketie, and so did a lot of the scouts. But Clint Hurt in particular was like Mafe, and that
Hmm.
obviously has worked out here.
Very much
Um,
so.
anyway,
Yeah.
so
So
the front is amazing, dude.
yeah, stats wise, Derek Hall 2 sacks, Tyrell Dodson 1 sack, Draymond Jones 1 sack, Jaron Reed 1 sack, Boye Mafe 1 sack. I mean, it's ludicrous. And what we should say is some of the run defense deficiencies come because they are playing the pass so well, and passing is more valuable than rushing, and stopping passing tends to win you quite a lot of games. So yeah, what McDonald's doing defensively is very impressive. And again, and Tyrell Dodson spoke about this, but the, he spoke of how they felt sluggish, something that Julian Lovett talked about after the New England Patriots game, how they felt sluggish that last game, but this game they came in pissed off, and you saw them all flying around the football and making plays, and I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but one of the offensive players credited the defense for kind of winning this game for them because of the offense lows, which we'll get to, but yeah, this was a very impressive defensive performance, accented by the front. The linebackers and secondary, they didn't have too many opportunities to shine, pretty much because the Dolphins are so limited. But to their credit, you had that feeling that as the game got closer, or just the Seahawks continued to be in a stink on offense, you got the feeling that it just takes one Tyreek Hill play for the game to get blown open. And they did have to survive a goal line series and get the goal line stop, which was big. And yeah, they didn't let that happen. So good job to the defense. And again, I'm really anxious to see them play against the proper quarterback and proper offense, arguably a top 5 offense in the league.
If we look at where Miami did move the ball, at least in the passing game, it was over the middle. So there are no yards available in this defense down the sideline. Like there's nothing there. Woolen and Witherspoon, Trey Brown, when they're too high and they're clouding at like the safeties or it's on lockdown. It's even one of those cases where had they played a better quarterback, I don't think there's yards available out there.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. Because like Skylar Howard, yeah, he and Tim Boyle, they're not throwing the fade.
No, they're not throwing the fade, but like even if they could, it's not available against this defense. But we did see production over the middle that was available in the Broncos games that Knicks couldn't complete. So like that's what it looks like. I think they had 6 yards per attempt, which is like bad, but it's not like 3-4 yards per attempt that we saw the past 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a little bit of like slightly more real structure affecting your structure. Ironically, like Goff they've played 4 offenses that in the passing game scheme very similarly conceptually. And each week there's been a slight upgrade in terms of like viability there from the opposing team, and there would have been a lot of viability had Tua been in there. Then we would have really have known what is the ceiling of the defense, or at least in this moment, what does the ceiling project to? The Lions game, they build the whole boat out of attacking the interior zone windows, and they don't throw fades because they don't need to or want to. It's Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams just gashing you over the middle. So it really makes you wonder, like, how are they going to handle that schematically? The more stress you place on the corners, the more stress you take off the linebackers on the interior, the better the defense, I think, is situated. And they're kind of doing that with as much one high as they're playing, especially the type of one high, because they're playing a lot of cover one, basically man coverage. And in man coverage, you're not really asking the linebackers to do much outside of babysit the running back. So
Yeah.
Cover three is a different story, but the way they're playing it, they're letting the corners chase in breakers more, even if like they have a potential, zone threat type thing.
Right.
And there's some cons to that, but the pros are like, well, you're helping out your linebackers a little bit more. But we'll see. Tyrese Knight had that one like classic, robot play action crosser opportunity. I thought his coverage was decent. I mean, he was in position, he just couldn't find the ball. But like with linebackers, 80% of the battle is keeping position maintenance on the receiver, right? It's not.
Mm-hmm.
We forget about playing the ball itself. That's what the corners are for. You just want to try to be in the window to prevent the throw. But I think, was it Boyle? To his credit, he made a nice throw. Yeah.
All right. So that's the defense done, other than obviously, as you just mentioned, Byron Murphy, the rookie defense tackle, and then Leonard Williams, the star defense tackle, both injured in the game, had to leave the game. McDonald very quiet on it post presser. He said Murphy had a hamstring injury that he suffered on a double team. He's not sure on the severity. I mean, a hamstring you presume would be at least a week missing, but you don't know. And if it's enough to get him out of the game, though, you'd think it would be at least a week. And then Leonard Williams is a midsection, and they've got a picture on it, but it doesn't know the results. So that could be terrible. Hopefully, it's just a bad bruise. We did have a question on this from Loma Boy. How screwed are we if Leonard Williams and Murphy can't play versus Detroit? I think it would be very significant. Williams is so good at kind of bringing dynamic and making a play and getting into the backfield and getting penetration when the opportunity presents itself, along with, staying and playing on blocks. He can also play a variety of techniques all along the interior, and we saw, remember, particularly in week 1, Williams plays a big edge against heavy personnel looks, even on like the end in a forefront. And they don't really have, I mean, they have Mike Morris who can do that, but if the backup is Draymond Jones doing that, that's not a move. Really, ideally, you'd need Leonard Williams there. Murphy, obviously, is a very accomplished player at taking on combos. I think, obviously, he'd be slightly less of a miss in terms of the run D stuff, but yeah, it'd be significant. But it should be said, Darren Reed, Jonathan Hankins, they can both play the run pretty good. It's just not having that depth, but that's why they had depth in the first place. So, anything to add there, Griff, or should we transition to the penalties?
I think you nailed it.
Wow, thank you very much.
I have nothing to add.
So Axel asked, how do you coach players on penalties? Do you just say, don't do that? That would be so good if that worked.
I mean, they have all of their internal, like...
Don't do it.
Yeah, they have things... Like, what did Mike Tomlin say last week? Like, you guys don't want to know how the sausage is made. Like, he was like, trust me, you guys don't want to know what all the ingredients of the hot dogs are, or something like that. So like even these like player friendly coaches, they're about to.
Yeah, and like last year there was the weird stuff.
People are getting shoot out is the answer.
Right, like last year there's the weird stuff with DK, like and Pete, and like is there a fine system or whatever, and just odds.
They do have a fine system,
and there
actually.
Is and there is a fine system now. Yeah.
The other side of it, though, is like, to a certain point, it's not just a matter of discipline and exercising restraint and impulse control. It's like straight up, how are they being coached? Because they're making errors because they're worried about, like, am I doing the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, what's the timing of the
like there's penalties you need to commit, and then there's penalties you shouldn't commit.
Yeah, so it's probably just, team effort, staff, players, just get it together.
And it's the
Um,
old thing of positive enforcement versus negative, right? Like
right.
if you are saying don't do something, you immediately think to do it, right?
Right. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. The other side is this could be a symptom of what we were talking about with a new coaching staff and all this, the staff members having not worked together yet. Like this could be like that rearing its ugly head a little bit.
it
Um,
is somewhat concerning to me, and I know we were shocked that in the New England game there's only 6 penalties in the box score, but it feels like this isn't like a one-game deal. Feels like there's been sloppy penalty elements to each game.
mhm.
And part of that's just the struggling offensive line. But why we're talking about it this week is Seattle did have a lot of penalties in the box score too. 11 penalties for 92 yards. Miami had 11 for 85. And we should say that the officiating crew was egregious. They were very,
They were on one. They were
they
on
were
fire.
officiating.
They were competing.
Yeah.
They were. It was like this game was their Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was like they were being watched and
Yeah.
like trying to cause not miss anything.
Look. They had fun. Okay. They played hard. The refs did. Let them be.
They got to
Let
go
them be.
home.
They're people too, Maddie. Let them
True.
look.
They have a family.
Gino throws footballs, they throw flags. Just let it be.
But that said, I think the penalties, Griff, tie into the offense struggles, okay? Because this
Mm-hmm.
game started with and yeah, it did extend defensive drives, but ultimately the defense did get off the field. But the game started with Seattle getting 17 points in the first quarter. There was an interception in between that, and we can talk about the picks. But then Seattle's offense did basically nothing. There was scoreless quarters in the second and third, and then they only just scored a touchdown right at the end of the game. And it was a lot of hard. I honestly thought we were going to get a 4-hour game because it was just
Yeah.
there was a missed field goal, which I don't know if you want to talk about Jason Myers, but
He also had
after the
another good make. So
yeah, true, but after the missed field goal, it was almost 3 and out every time.
yeah, what were the actual so
So do you want to? Like, here we go. Right,
yeah,
field goal, 7-play drive, touchdown, 5-play drive, interception, 3-play drive, touchdown, 1-play drive,
that was Brad.
missed field goal, 9-play drive, punt, 4 plays, punt, 3 plays, punt, 3 plays, punt, 3 plays, pick, 8 plays, touchdown, 11 plays, end of game.
Yeah.
That's bad. Like, it's really bad. And with the receiving talent that Seattle has, with how well their quarterback's playing, with even without Ken Walker, like Zach Charbonnet, uh, he showed what he can bring to this offense. He was really impressive in this game. I thought his tough running, 18 carries for 91 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and that physical kind of almost elusive but very downhill playing style.
Right.
Where he gets you extra yards. He showed what he could do at blocking, but overall, Griff, the offense stalled. And why was that?
Well, I mean, like you
Is it
said,
there's 2 things, right?
penalties. Okay, go ahead.
3 things: penalties, play caller, and
Maddie, I
offensive
can't
line.
count that high. I can't count that high.
No.
3 things. I can count to 2, and then we can like start over. Then I can count 1 again, but I can't count.
Okay, we'll do penalties again.
Okay, penalties. And then what's
offensive line, play caller.
okay? All right. So penalties, offensive line, play caller. Gotcha. So, and then you can also see how those 3 things reinforce each other negatively, right?
Of
Because when you have a
course.
penalty, are they getting penalties because of the coaching? Or are they getting penalties because of the players are bad? And then you're in the hole, and then maybe the players make the play calls even worse, or et cetera, right? So it's just all this crap going on. Bottom line is you have to make the assumption moving forward that they won't have such a heavily penalized game again.
Well, I
But
don't know. Do you?
I mean, if you don't, then you're saying this offense isn't going to be really good. I think we all think this offense. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that end of the tunnel is a very good offense that's capable. having 8.5 yards per attempt speaks to the general capabilities of your offense. So that means you're moving the ball, but all this goofball shit with the penalties and the interceptions and the sacks you got to clean it up. It's they're a very talented clown show at the moment. And they need to be a very talented, like, highbrow drama show instead. Anyway, so yeah, like, the protection's really, really bad, and the play calling needs to have that context baked in, and I'm not so certain that it is. I'm going to use last year as a reference point, not to make comparisons or priors or whatever, but just like, what does it look like when you've got a bad O-line? The second half of last year, I'm going to highlight the second half of last year. They had a high, like, full field progression drop back call rate. So 5-step drop, stuff like that. The average depth of target sustained the second half of the year compared to the first year. So it was like 7.2, which is like bang average. And yet the expected completion percentage rose, like rose. Meanwhile, the completion percentage over expectation dropped. So that meant Geno was completing the passes that you would expect relative to what was open on the field. And in junction with that, the EPA also rose. So that meant, with a horrid O-line, which is what they had last year, especially in the second half of the season, you saw guys in space getting yards after the catch. The third downs improved. The red zone improved. All these things improved. Right now, the Seahawks are moving the ball in early downs. They're not converting third downs. They're kind of Jekyll and Hyde. We're like, this is going to be a possession-oriented drive. This is going to be a deep shot drive. I mean, some of the, like, it's okay to live in different modes of offense. Like, it's okay, but trying to stitch it all together is hard. It took Waldron 8 games with this O-line, But my point right now is that I think that Grubb's designs are great, but they are not congruent with the constraints of his protection. So what I'm saying is, he needs to scheme smaller. He's trying to scheme home runs and then accent them with singles. And I think he needs to eschew with both and try to hit doubles consistently, and then let the home runs come as they come. Let the singles come as they are yielded by the defense. And I know that's like really wishy-washy, but like, what am I talking about here? I just mean, like, pull out your 5-step drop passing game. You don't need to be living in the 7-step world. Get into your 5-step passing game, and call your call 5-step wide cross, spam mesh again, get into your mesh progression. When you go into empty, let's just see choice and then work in backside options. Right now, when he runs choice, the backside options aren't really there. It's more half field read. And I think that's why, like, the singles and stuff, like the runner isn't beating the throw to first base right now, because there really aren't options in it.
Well, to center what you're talking about, because obviously you've used some football jargon there, Griff, as we sometimes do on the podcast.
And baseball jargon.
Single? Oh, is that baseball singles?
Baseball is a sport we play over here, yeah.
Oh, right. Super Source XL, great name. Any ideas why the Seahawks didn't lean into the quick passing game as much through the middle part of the game? Seemed to work well earlier, and then in the final scoring drive. I mean, some of what you've just spoke about there, Griff, is the quick passing game stuff. And I think it would be very convenient if in that middle part they just didn't do the quick passing, because then it would be a very simple fix. There's probably a part of that not being. I think also just game state of when you get penalties and you get negative plays and you're in third and long,
Changes.
Even if you do call a quick passing game, you've got a much further way to go and get the first down. On a similar vein, you might not want to call the passing game because you have a much further way to go. You might want to call a longer passing play. So that's something I'll be looking at on the tape, those super source. But it did feel, that last drive felt so easy that it was like, well, where's this been? Like, why can they do all these plays? And it was a mix of everything. There was mesh, there was empty. It wasn't, I don't think it might have been choice.
We did see choice.
Where the slot receiver has a choice route, fires, beats the pressure. There was
I think we saw Fant finally on choice. I mean, that's what
there was under center. And I think this is the point for me. Like, when an offense is good and moving the ball, everything looks good. But when they go 3 and out, everything looks really disjointed. And it feels like they're missing certain plays because guess what? They weren't able to call those plays. But that's kind of what my kind of beef, if there is a beef, did they not, like the Patriots game, they were unable to run the ball, and Gino made some great stuff happen. But this game, it felt the run game had been there the whole time, and the quick passing game might have been there too, and they sort of got away from that for whatever reason.
Well,
I need to look at the lows in more detail.
They got away.
The penalties.
They got away from it because Ryan Grubb is an ideologue. He does not like to run the ball, man. Running the ball.
He's a drop back guy, and Gino he leads the league in pass completions and passing yards.
Yeah, and like fucking pass rates. Like,
with that O line is kind of nuts to me.
Yeah. Well, you got to tap into your possession oriented progression passing. I mean, you can't.
Well, what did we say last week, Griff?
All right, hold up. Well, one sec. We might watch the tape and see that he was trying, and then we can't. Okay, that happens a lot. But
join us on Thursday for that.
Yep.
The Thursday recanting.
You go ahead though. Proceed. You were saying something before I rudely.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you'd finished.
You said something about something. It was really great. I messed it up. You said, hold on. You said,
I nearly messed you up. This is really good podcasting for
Look, it was mutual.
Oh, yeah. We were saying last week, right? Hey, Gino played absolutely unbelievable this week. Like, unreal given the circumstances he was in.
Yeah.
And this was more about the offensive line we're talking about than the penalties. But week-to-week variance, like luck, like the almost pick he nearly threw against the Patriots, that will be a pick. It was a fluky one where he wasn't trying to throw it to that guy, but he got hit as he threw it. Just like the Broncos play, where it's a really fluky play, and Gino described it himself as fluky, and it's a pick. And lo and behold, you get 2 of the flukiest interceptions in this game, where Gino's done incredible just to stay alive in the pocket, and he tries to get it to his check down on the Charbonnet play. And the ball just gets tipped up, and maybe Charbonnet could have batted it down. He was really kind of reaching. Gino probably should have tried to throw it lower and in the dirt. I'm trying to think of the other pick, but it was a very similar type of tip up weird pick play. And those are the mistakes that they will occur when you're under intense pressure, but also they're kind of random fluky plays. They're also the type. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say karmically, it kind of counterbalances, like you were saying, what they got lucky with weeks 1 and 2 interception wise. Now they're on the downside of luck there, but
and then adding on top of that, they're also the type of plays that if you do that in Detroit on Monday night, buddy, they're going to pound it in the end zone, and you've just given them a touchdown, and they're a really good team, and doing that in the championship, that's not what a playoff team does. It might be what a playoff team does in week 3 of the season. It might be what a championship team does in week 3 of the season, but those things have to be cleaned up. And so this is the offensive line Seattle has. We've got a question about from Brandon saying, will you be surprised if you see the Seahawks try and make a trade for a starting guard? No. Even if John Schneider, the GM, he has traded for a lineman before. Go ahead, Griff.
Ryan Grubb is a really strong, firm handshake. John Schneider, respect to him, does not have as strong of a handshake. They're going to meet at some point in the hallways of the VMAC. Ryan Grubb's going to graciously embrace John with a handshake.
I was thinking
he's going to suggest Joel Bitonio, Seahawks jersey. Make it happen. Very kindly.
I was thinking a beard off, like they'll both be stroking their beards in the canteen. And Grubb it'll be Schneider won't have had it. He sometimes has it quite pointy. This is someone who can't really grow a beard. I don't know if you can tell.
You look fine. Anywho. You're like Ewan McGregor, dude. You look fine. You look great. You don't need facial hair.
Thank you. Anyway, you look delightful.
Thanks.
No problem. But yeah, I think they will be trying to trade for an offensive lineman. whether they're successful or not, who knows?
Joel Bitonio, Seahawk.
But as Griff said, in his opening, they probably need to find a better play calling balance for their what they've got. And they will probably find that, but it's going to take time, and there's going to be some painful moments like this.
Yeah.
And at least it's happening at this point in the season, rather than what we saw with Shane Waldron, where Gino was red hot and they're kind of getting away with it. And then they kind of ran out of things they were able to do as the season progressed, and it became too much to overcome. And then you got all these things thrown around, like they lacked an identity and they were too siloed. And maybe those things were true as well, but there was that big limiting factor on top of that, which was the offensive line. And they've completely rejigged it. They've got Connor Williams, they've got Laken Tomlinson, they've got Anthony Bradford as his first year as a starter, and they've got Christian Haynes rotating in for him, and they've got a new right tackle, and yet the results are rather similar, and it points towards really a lack of big investment in the position, which is kind of how Schneider's always done the interior. So
yeah, agreed. Yeah, we'll see with the O-line, dude. How does Schneider? I mean, it's kind of ironic that he made that quote that he did, and then seeing what the guard play is doing to the what it did last year. It was crazy to say that, and then what's happening this year. I don't. That's kind of wild. I'm generally a Schneider defender, I guess is the right word. I don't feel like I defend the guy. I just think, yeah, he's pretty good, is my view. He's been drafting really well in general. My criticisms are more who he lets go, not who he brings in. But anyway, yeah, speaking to your point about structure and Grubb, like this week on that note, we did finally see under center play action. We saw some boot. We saw some pocket play action.
Finally.
And I think the process was good. I'm really curious to see what he dialed up on tape. And because he uses only like 2 formations out of under center right now. And he's putting out a lot of different permutations of like motions and everything. But
12 personnel trips and 11 personnel.
Right. 11, and you got Gino, or you got DK at X in a close split. And they're doing a variety of things off of that. And I'd be really curious to see what he threw in there.
It seemed like it was more just... Sorry, Griff.
No, go ahead.
I've been terrible at cutting you off tonight. I
apologize. No. Listen, brother. We've all been there. I've cut you off. Again, karmic balance. It's just we're clearing the books here. Well, but I'm curious to see what he thinks. Well, let me frame this better. We don't know what Ryan Grubb thinks about under center play action defense because he didn't need that in college. So this is total like new stuff for him. And I want to know who is he pulling from around the league. Like so far, the staple of which we've only seen like 5 plays, he's called drift twice, right?
Well, the DK crosser, like that just to me seemed like the very similar play concept of which we've seen from trips, where we're gonna run off 3 receivers on one side down the field and hit the shallow underneath and run off the coverage, and it's the same premise, just out of 2 back, right? Like we're showing full flow one way, we're running off the coverage, and then we're hitting the shallow on the boot.
We did see the pocket. Was it even out of shotgun to Fant, like on Y shallow? That was something they had a lot of success with, especially in 2022.
Noah Fant with 6 catches today. Which
so here's that's the other topic.
The most is a Seahawk.
Regarding target distribution, after
they're all over the place.
They're all over the place. I mean, I thought it was good in terms of using the receivers. The purpose is no OC should set out to be like, I got to get so and so 8 targets today, and this guy's 7 and that guy 10.
Right.
That's like you get the ball to the open man.
Yeah. But at the same time, Griff, JSN did say after his kind of coming out versus the Patriots that pre-game he kind of had a feel that he was going to be getting more of the ball that game. So there is a bit of game plan in there, of course.
Well, yeah, but it might be from like, this is how they're going to defend us. So who is likely to eat today, right? But the JSN isn't going to get 16 targets every game. Today he got 3. So the point there is there's only room for 2 guys to really get high volume. Yep. And if you want 3 to get an equitable amount, then you're looking at 6 targets for the 3 of them. Maybe today it was 6 for DK, 6 for Noah, and 8 for Tyler. we're all three guys are not going to be posting fantasy numbers every week, and not saying anyone is suggesting that they would, but it's like better usage for JSN means Tyler Lockett gets 2 targets like he got last week. Tyler and DK getting targets this week. Oh, and you want your $10 million per year tight end to get some targets. It means your first round, second year player is barely going to be quote unquote used all game long. But again, that's also dictated by the defense, dictated by the protection, dictated by quarterback choice. It's not just, all the machinations of OC choice, So I suspect this like rotating who's the leading target getter is going to change every single game of the season, as it should. The whole point of having more firepower is that you can use whoever the defense does not take away. That's the beauty of it. So,
well, we should say also that it was not in targets, but in just raw production. DK Metcalf had back-to-back 100-yard games after today, which is the first time he's done that since 2020. That's per field goals of SB Nation. DK today, Griff, I think we spoke about in the previous episode, maybe it was off air, but anyway, how he hadn't, it sounds silly, but his 58-yard touchdown catch against the Patriots, he ran really quick and he was really big, but it was a busted coverage and any player would make that play. We hadn't really done, I've heard lots of different talk about how he's being used more, like in terms of, they're giving him in routes. They're not using him as an ISO receiver. I'm not sure I buy that. Like, he moved around some in previous years. He's still moving around some. It just so happens the Patriots busted the coverage this past weekend. And then this weekend, we've seen Grubb come up with a great beater for the coverage where safety bites down, popped over the top to DK, behind the quarter safety. Gino describes his great play call. And DK's really fast, and that's the type of targets or play designs you want to get him on. And maybe you can be more creative each week. Obviously, you need some protection for that to pop. And there was a few missed against the Patriots where he was open on a play, which was a clever design, and he is really big and really fast, and he can run. But the ball didn't get there because of the pass pro, and I'm sure this week there might be one or two on tape that we see where it didn't get hit. But yeah, what's your thoughts on this topic?
DK is being used how he's always been used.
Yeah,
he's being used how Shoddy used him. He's being used how Waldron used him, and Grubb is using him the way he used Rome, and how Grubb used Rome is how Waldron used DK. And now, so it's he's got 262 yards off to a great start. He's getting those deep air yard explosives. That's good to see. 2 really big ones, right? He has 24 targets through 3 games. If we divide 24 by 3, we get 8. So somewhere that means Hugh Millen is not satisfied because he wants 10 per game. So Grubb is not passing his performance review in the eyes of Hugh Millen so far. Just kidding. We're joking. To put all these numbers in context right now, I'm generally very optimistic about the offense, optimistic about Grubb's role in it. But just
someone isn't.
Yeah, if you guys can hear my dog. But just to contextualize, like right now, the Seahawks have negative EPA. They're 15th in the league right now. They were, for this game, they were like 14th, and they'll probably be bumped down to 15, maybe 16th after the Sunday night game. Mm-hmm. They are moving the ball and they're not scoring points. It's the same issue last year. They could move the ball and they could not score points until the second half of the season. But right now, the first half of the season, with the process being slightly different, the results are very similar. They can move the ball and they can't score. They got 24 points on 12 drives is like bang average. We remember that Titans game. They were like, oh, they only scored 20 points, but that was on 7 drives. If they had, 12 drives that game, they would have put up 35 points against the Titans game. So just to put in perspective how a lot of our perception is colored by how many times they had the ball. They've been getting the ball a lot, in large part credit to the defense, right?
Yeah. And again, I don't want to bash the O-line too much. Like I said, I feel if we go back over the tape, I imagine most of the issues will have been penalties rather than bad O-line play. You just obviously have like Charles Cross getting beat around the edge for push-pull sack. That's obviously a slight issue. And then you have the Bradford Calais Campbell play, which leads to the pick. As ever with offensive line, there's like 2 plays which are bad, maybe, and they stick in your mind. But they also, a large portion of the penalties were offensive line committing them. So anyway, on the O-line, Stone Forsyth, I didn't really notice him, so perhaps he did well at right tackle. Of course, McLennan Curtis was called up, but a really positive sign, I guess, that the Seahawks' third string right tackle didn't get noticed. Griff, anything on Stone?
Yeah, I think he actually played well. I think it
So
was.
maybe it's a reps, just getting settled in thing?
Yeah, he had a good game against Hutchinson last year, but Hutchinson seems to have unlocked a new level. That will be a fun matchup again.
And a small note that Christian Haynes rotated very little in with Anthony Bradford. Did Haynes give up a sack at the start of the game?
I don't know. I don't know that. I don't remember.
Yeah. McDonald said afterwards that Bradford really earned those opportunities, but it's a week-to-week thing right now at right guard. So we'll see how practice goes. But when he was asked about Kobe Bryant getting defense action, McDonald said, if you're doing a great job in practice and kicking butt, we'll figure out a way to get you out there. And while that applies on defense, I think we're going to see a bit of that on offense. Speaking of which, cool to see Kenny McIntosh. I know he's a bit of a fan favorite, but him get some action right at the end of the game and truck someone and get the crucial first down to ice the clock. Anything else, Griff, that you want to talk about? McDonald said sloppy operation-wise that we definitely need to address moving forward. He praised the crowd noise. The crowd seemed really loud, which, credit to them. I think the negative EPA on offense, Griff, comes off to me like, well, that's what, they've been winning games quite comfortably still, but, it speaks to how dominant their defense has been in the main, particularly in the red zones. Kevin Harland it was great to hear him on a Seahawks broadcast, but for him to not be able to do Jackson Smith and Jigba's name was quite funny. He could have just said JSN as well. He kept trying and failing. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, that was funny.
In Jenga.
He's usually really good with pronunciations too. So
yeah, maybe we're wrong then.
Huh. I didn't think about that. No. Maybe you're right.
It was a really bad game to watch.
It sucked.
If you were like in my position, right, being British and having friends who are like, "Oh, what's all this American football then? What's that about?" And I'm like, "Oh, you should watch the game tonight. It'll be really good. Yeah, you'll see a flying defense. It'll be fun." That would not be the game to sell them on.
Yeah.
Trash.
Agreed. What is the general media coverage of when they play overseas in London and stuff? Like, does the local news channel cover it?
The local news channel, the BBC.
The BBC, okay.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Nice, cool.
But I don't think based on the fact that the Jags aren't moving, I don't think it's been that, and they've started it more international than just the UK. I don't think it's been as massively successful as they'd have liked. Did he get it together in the second half? Did he pronounce JSN's name correct? I must have missed that. Let's go through the rest of the questions, and then we will finish on a magnificent thing. Was there anything different about the run plays called this week versus last week? Nice picture. I can't tell who's... Is that Mickey Mouse, Griff, or is that Minnie?
Yeah, I think that's Mickey.
Mickey looks really happy, and yeah. No, I don't think so. And that's something I'm anxious to watch the tape back on, because the Dolphins' front isn't amazing, they've got some decent players. I know
Their
they play a
guys are
lot of
out.
4 down, and it's a similar structure to what Seattle's used to facing because it's the same defense as what they face in practice. But the run game actually got movement at times when there wasn't penalties or holding. And so a lot of the holding, it looked like unnecessary. It looked like the crease was there.
Mm.
Whereas last week they just got knocked completely off the ball. They got absolutely destroyed. But the concepts, like in the main, look the same. Of course, there's little tweaks here and there. Do you agree, Griff?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I mean, a lot of duo, wide zone. Then they got the pull scheme counters out of shotgun. I don't know if I remember a lot of power counter from under center.
I thought that Charbonnet end of game was that duo?
Was it? I thought it was duo, but I might.
Yeah,
Or
it's
could
pretty
be
duo.
the wineback play.
Yeah.
Um,
Monjombo, did you guys catch what linebacker Drake Thomas's role was? I couldn't tell who the other linebackers were on the field with him.
he was
I
playing
think it was just
well.
the will. Right?
He's. I mean, maybe the tape again might show because I wasn't really keying on him, but athletically, he definitely belongs on the field.
He's the type of player who wearing a number in the 40s is going to benefit. He's looking like because he's making these plays in coverage. You're like, oh, okay, kind of a safety type out here.
Yeah. Does he make 40 look sleek and fast?
Yeah, but as soon as he has to fit a fullback, it's like, oh god, that guy's a safety. Like, why? What are we doing here? That guy's a free safety.
Dude, on the linebackers, I know the run defense is good overall, but when they went into two back, Dodson is lost. He cannot key up. He cannot key.
Why did they not do it more?
I don't know.
I have no.
Who
question.
Who up in the skybox is responsible for telling McDaniel what's going on?
Well, I think
Skyview.
McDaniel, like the chillest coach in the league, just completely had a head loss. He was so pissed at the officials.
Yeah, maybe.
There was the play where their left tackle false started. They then let the play go while throwing a flag. Let the quarterback get absolutely rocked. Then called illegal formation on the right tackle for being in the backfield, and he wasn't in the backfield. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Griff, they got to go home.
Yeah, that too. The other note on the defense, like again, a third week of like them being really vanilla on early downs. Like they're not really running the defense yet.
But I wonder if that's because they're scared of the run, Griff. You can't get too exotic if you're gonna get run on.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they get exotic on pass downs, but see, I feel like the exoticism can kill two birds with one stone. You can lean into stuff when you're adding. I mean, a four-man pressure. If it's a run, it becomes a 5-man run blitz. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know why it's all centered around beating the protection and not really trying to help the run defense out. I feel like you can bridge those two worlds.
Did you hear McDonald was asked about? He was literally asked the question that I wanted to ask him. He was asked about like too high fits.
Yeah. It's interesting that his answer is interesting. He immediately went to the D line instead of the linebackers with that question.
Well, and I liked how he talked about sticking guy in the post. You're going to get run on the perimeter, and I think that's very fresh with the idea of what Miami do, because you want to be able to. If you've got two guys back there, you can spin down either way and get to the alley either way. And Miami do all that jet and misdirection to one side. Well, if they then hand it on the other side, you've at least got a guy on that side on his half of the field or whatever. So I thought that was fresh in his mind. But yeah, it was interesting. He talked about edges and but it was fun. I loved at the end how he went, love the question, more football questions, please.
Yeah.
He's so thirsty to be asked like a proper question.
Matty, you need to get on the Zoom and just nail him.
Wow.
Hey, coach, what are the considerations for second level run fitters when fitting the run from a one high gapped out defense versus an out gap two high defense, coach?
Just find a play from Todd Granthram's defense where he was like the GA and be like, hey, coach, do you think he has a photographic memory like McVay?
No, I think he's just crazy repped out in his mind. I think he's just
He's very interested in
He's
the
all
sideline, isn't he? He's constantly pacing while talking
yeah.
and then
He's
looking.
he's he's constantly just like repeating things. Coach, what are your thoughts on just fundamentally in zone coverage and matching versus spot drop, the pros and cons of each coach?
Yeah, why do you spot drop all the time?
Coach, you come from a tree that is big on adding numbers against the protection, blitz heavy, but you seem to want the best of both worlds with your replacement pressure packages. Why, Coach? Why is it important to have 7 guys in coverage but still be able to get free hitters at the quarterback?
I said this off air, but what's crazy is in Baltimore, like reporters were asking him about like double cornerback blitzes and stuff, and he'd be like, oh, I don't really want to get into that too much, but like his like he 100% will give you a lot on football stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
or you could ask him, Coach, what do you call the technique when there's boot action and the field hook defender has to get underneath that crossing route? I've heard it called robot. I've heard it called a panic drop. What do you guys call it, Coach? I think he'd tell you. I think he'd tell you an individual technique name because it's not like it's Morse code. It's just.
Well, interestingly, Dodson. You know Dodson's sack.
Yeah.
He said, Coach said in the off season, when I get that formation, I have a free license to go.
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if that. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if that's a cool blitz or if it's the look for like it because it was full flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice any tendency breaking on the final scoring drive? I think we've answered that, Manu Wargs, but I did see that question because when I was saying what I was saying, that was fresh in my mind. And then finally, this is a good one to wrap on. Brandon, what has surprised you the most, least about this season so far? Griff, I'll give you some time to think on that. But for me, the least has been the run defense struggles because, well, it's just been reassuring that I wasn't going crazy because those are structural weaknesses. And, whatever talent you have, there are some, the talent level in the NFL is fairly equal, right? Even if you have some great players. And Seattle has some really good talent on the interior of the D-line in particular, and the edges are popping now. But a structural weakness is a structural weakness. And so that has surprised me the least. And then what surprised me the most, I'll think on that. Griff, how about you with that question?
Dude, it's one of those rare seasons where I don't feel very surprised at all. And I've felt very surprised in recent years, at least to start. Like, I didn't think it would start this way.
Yeah, the 2022, 2023 starts were shocking in so many different ways.
Offense and defense, good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm surprised by just how good the pass rush is. I didn't think they would be this good. I thought they were going to be like 8, 9, 10th, but they're like 2, 3, 4, 5 at worst at this point. So I think that's really great. Maybe that's what I'm most surprised by. What I'm least surprised by is perhaps the protection. They did not make any moves to really shore this up. Yeah.
I suppose I'm most surprised about how easy it's been, even though it looked fairly simple. But you didn't expect Tua to get hurt, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you did, which that's a bit sad. But yeah, it's been very. But also not just opponents faced, but just even with the struggles, like the lulls, it's just felt very. It's almost had a preseason vibe to it, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's been very peculiar.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Chris Otto.
Chris, thank you for the donation. Chris, you must have missed it. I watched it.
Maddie,
we talked about that on the podcast.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah, Chris, we'll try find the episode that I watched it. We can sync it up with the dates.
But Maddie,
is Chris asking if I've watched it twice or something?
I think maybe he meant to ask you, Maddie, if you watched Children of Men yet. Because yeah, I don't think so.
No. But yeah, Chris, I'd recommend that to a friend of the pod, an overloader. Right, Griff, let's are you ready for this?
Yeah.
You are? No?
For what? Oh, the suspense is killing me. What am I waiting for? Matty, this is a family show.
I gasped when I saw. I could not believe it. What's going on? What's going on in Seattle?
Oh, the chat is not fond of Children of Men. That's crazy to me. Great film.
Yeah. I was as you do after every Seahawks game, I was looking for pictures of McDonald's play sheet. And why I cannot believe that's posted. Is that in the public interest? I don't know what the rules are for posting images.
The bear rear or the image of McDonald's play sheet.
Well, that's obviously in the public interest. People are saying it's Braxton Bear Arse Eos.
Mm.
Do you like that one?
That's good.
This is it could be. That is a good theory. You're most welcome. Now, let's be clear. You're not paying me for these images, okay? That's just a donation. You're getting some hot water here. Right. We'll be back next Thursday with a tape podcast from this previous game and then previewing the Detroit Lions game and reacting to any Seahawks news that breaks. Please do like this video, subscribe to the channel. It's obviously got a new name, but it's the same. It's even more clear, actually. Oh, bells. Yeah. And please also let us know if the podcast starts showing up in your audio feed, because it should. I don't know why it isn't, but it hopefully will. So fingers crossed on that. But thanks for joining us on YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live as well. It's so good to have all these questions. Helps keeps us a bit more focused. And Griff, closing wisdom.
Maybe next time